Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for Tampa Home Talk on the Real Estate Radio Network. Really excited to have a fantastic guest in studio today. Before I announce him and kick the show off, let's tell you what it's about. So we are going to dive into mold this week, since we've talked about some other stuff in previous weeks. And we're going to talk about why a bottle of bleach will not fix the problem. So our guest in studio today is going to be Dave Ball with Interpro Restoration. And before I let him dive in and start talking, he is a radio junkie himself. He hosted a show before in the past, but his credentials are amazing. Not only does he have 11 years in the industry as far as a background and just in this, but he was actually pre-med at University of Florida. So he's a Gator. We already like him for that. And just the fact that he was pre-med, he has so much information and knowledge with regards to physics and biology and all the craziness that actually goes into mold remediation. So not only is he married to Asha, the most beautiful woman in the world, but he has 3 kids of his own. And it's amazing. Third generation contractor. So you were born probably with a hammer in your hand, and you've been nicknamed in the industry as the Mold Guy.
That's right.
So welcome to the show, the Mold Guy.
Thank you very much for having me on, and I really appreciate coming back out here, and I'm super excited to be here today. Don't you just love that cue up music when you hear your show come on and they play that intro 30-second reel? I mean, I used to love listening to that on my show.
Well, it's funny because Jen actually went to San Diego with me not too long ago, which is where Real Estate Radio Network is located. They're the mothership of our show. And the guy that does the intro, his name's James Hope, and he actually hosts a show in the Pennsylvania market. Okay. So it was neat because she had heard the show opener, but then she actually got to meet James Hope, and she's like, oh, that's the guy that does your intro. Yes, that would be him, Mr. James Hope. Total radio voice, like way better than mine.
Yeah, I was always worried about that when I first got on the radio. What does my voice sound like on the radio? Because I've heard myself on video recordings, and I'm like, ooh, that's what I sound like.
Everybody does that.
Yeah. And then, I was doing it my first, not audition, but where they kind of try you out and listen to your voice and kind of get you used to talking on the radio. And they were saying, okay, yeah, your voice isn't bad. You don't sound bad. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I was definitely worried about that too.
So the topic of our show today is mold. And this is a live show today. So if you want to call in, I'm going to give you our studio air numbers. I'm going to repeat it a couple times. So if you're driving, pull over, grab the number real quick, because you can call in and ask the Mold Guy anything you like today. But we have some great content lined up for you. Our studio call-in lines are 727-441-3000. Again, you can reach us in studio today at Tampa Home Talk with the Mold Guy, Dave Ball, Interpro Restoration, 727-441-3000. Feel free to dial up and the Mold Guy will answer your questions. 727-441-3000. Welcome to the show again. We're happy to have you here today. I forgot to mention, too, retired Army, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. You have so
right here in Clearwater at the Coast Guard station right there is the 5159 Dust Off Devil Rays Medevac unit. I was there for 3 years.
So what was that exactly? What was that about?
Basically, our unit was a medevac unit, so helicopters, Black Hawk helicopters, and flight surgery and stuff like that. So basically, if somebody got injured on the battlefield, we'd come out and pick them up, take care of them. And our unit was like crew chiefs, which basically helped the pilot of the helicopter have eyes around the helicopter because it's huge. Black Hawks are ginormous.
Yes.
And then the other thing is we would have medics, obviously they're the medics, and then you have the pilots. But our unit had a ton of people, and I met some really great guys in there. A lot of those guys have actually come out and helped me on some of my bigger projects if I need, extra guys for help. because I mean, we're in the unit, we know each other. It's, you know, you can rely
Right.
on them, you can count on them. So
I got to tell you, your credentials are amazing. And I think it's one of those things for the person listening, when you think about a topic such as mold, and then once you understand what mold is, which we're going to explain that and go into that in today's show, it's interesting how your physics and your background, which started pre-med, biology, all of that stuff has a huge part in what you do today, which is why you do it, I guess, right?
yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how I got into it. Like you said, I'm a third generation contractor. My dad owned a restoration company and a construction company. And basically, you know, I went to UF. I was studying pre-med. I did my shadowing my sophomore year for a year. I did my medical research. My junior year, I was published in the American Urology Association Journal of Medicine as second author for research I did with the director of urology at Shands. And then I did a presentation for my medical research at the medical school there at UF. And I did all this while I was an undergraduate, and I was offered another research project with the Da Vinci machine. It's like that big machine where they put little 1-inch slits in you, and they do surgery inside your body, and they put it up on a big screen, and it has like remote controls like a video game and stuff.
Craziness, isn't it?
Yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, oh man, what a great opportunity. And I'm sitting there in the OR, and I had been in there for like 4 hours, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored. I want to leave. You know, like, how can I, you know, tell them, like, you know, I got to go. I got to
not for me.
Yeah. So then I realized, okay, this is definitely not for me at all. You know?
It's a good thing you figured it out early and not like all the student loans later that comes with a medical license, right?
I'm definitely still paying student loans.
Could be worse, right? It could always be worse.
Yeah.
So let's dive into the genetic makeup of our show today. If you had to describe to someone, I mean, everybody's seen mold, right? You know what it is.
Right.
But what actually is mold? Like, coming
Okay.
from your background, what is it?
Okay, so mold is a biological organism. It's a living organism. Okay, and if you think about it, you know those little dandelion things? They're like the white little ball, and you pick them up and you blow it, and all the little particles go through the air.
Yes, the things, I don't know if you have girls, but those things that little girls love. Like, they see
Yeah.
them, they can't, the dandelion? No, not
No, they're not.
dandelions.
What are they?
They're
I
called
can't-
something, the
yeah.
wish things.
Yes, I know what you're talking. Yeah, that thing. So basically, that's what
We
it
can
is.
tell you what mold is. We can't tell you what that thing is.
Yeah. If you looked at that, if you looked at mold under a microscope, that's actually what you would see. That same thing, a stem with a bulb with a bunch of spores on it, which are those little white things, and that's how they disperse very gently, and you blow or pass air over them, and they float into the air. And it looks under a microscope exactly like that, if that's what you were going to look at.
So the difference is we can see those things when we blow them, but you can't see the mold.
You can't see the mold. It's they're about 0.3 microns in size, and what does that mean to somebody? It means it's really, really small, and you can't see it, and it stays suspended in the air for a very long time. That's why.
So let's talk about the size. Just elaborate on that for a
Yeah.
minute. So we're talking about this pen that I have in my hand, and the tip of it is very tiny.
Right. So basically, 1 million spores would fit on the tip of your pen.
So 1 million spores into the writing tip of the pen.
That's right.
Insane.
Yeah. So
And that stuff's floating through the air, and you can't see it.
And that, yeah, right. That's what would happen. It would float through the air. So basically, if you get an indoor air quality check, right? And so, like, we do that. We'll come out and we'll do an indoor air quality check with a machine called a laser particle counter. And I'll be able to tell you how many spores are in a cubic foot of airspace, right? So basically, I'm looking at parts per million in a cubic foot of airspace. So, like, the other day, I looked at two projects, and one resident had 14,000 parts per million. So there's 14,000 spores per million parts of air. And then what ended up happening was then we go inside the house, and that's how we find out if the indoor air quality is safe for a person. We're comparing the outside air to the inside air. We're not saying that this is the magic number and you need to have less than this number in your house. That's not the way it works. It works basically, we're comparing the outside air. And the
Because
reason,
you're going to have stuff everywhere, right? Inside
Right.
or outside. Imagine you'd find stuff in any home.
right, you're going to find in every home it's part of Florida's natural ecological system. And the reason we compare it to the outside air in that location is because when it rains, the spore count changes. When it's sunny, it changes. When it's winter, it changes. It changes rapidly every single day. But when you open your front door, the air equalizes. When you open a window, the air equalizes. So that's how we can tell if you have a mold issue in your house, is if that spore count is like 10 times, 100 times, 5 times what the outside is, then that's typically a signal to me saying, okay, you have an issue in your home that needs to be addressed. And
what's the cost for a test like that? Is it something you guys evaluate at no charge, or is there a cost for that?
No,
test?
there's a cost for the
Okay.
test. Okay, so basically it breaks up into the type of service that you need, because there's several different ways that you can test for mold. You can do surface swabs, which is basically like a yes/no indicator. It's a color changer. It says, okay, yes, that's mold. No, it's not mold. And what it actually tests is the ATP, which is the energy produced from mold breaking down a material. So you'd actually have to physically see mold growth and swab it, and it'll tell you yes or no, that's mold and it's active. That's your cheapest test.
I think that's the one like the general home inspectors would do.
Yeah, those are cheap. I mean, those don't cost very much. You'll spend more money on having someone come out and gas than the actual test. And that's
Which is probably why it's easy for them just to test it while they're there.
right. Yeah, that's something we used to sell those. I don't have them on my website anymore. But if anybody were to go to the website or call in and they wanted them, we can get them to them.
And again, you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. Our guest in studio today is Dave Ball. He's with Interpro Restoration. And we're going to post all of his contact information, phone number, website, and all these amazing videos he has on his website. We would highly, highly encourage you to pop on over there and have a look. Again, check out our website, tampahometalk.com. And we are going to point you over to Mr. David Ball. We'll be back in just a minute.
Love where you live, or my mommy will fix it.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
You've heard this before. Interest rates are at all-time record lows. But if your interest rate is 4% or above, you owe it to yourself to call Silverton Mortgage Specialist. Silverton is a direct lender, and the best part about this is that the entire loan process is handled in-house. From application to close, we do it all in the same building, which means that our loans close fast and our clients know what's going on every step of the way. Our contact info is located on TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show. What makes Silverton different? Products. We offer VA, FHA, USDA, and conventional loans pricing. Best rates with the lowest closing cost. Process everything in-house. It's handled right here and not outsourced to anyone that no one can reach. This way we can avoid surprises. Our people are simply the best, and we know you'll agree. What will closing Silverton Mortgage Specialist mean to you? A smooth process, real home loan value, and personal attention from real professionals. Silverton Mortgage Specialists are here to serve you. Visit TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show for all of our contact details. NMLS 109600 is an equal housing lender and Florida and Georgia residential mortgage licensee.
You're buying a house. Congratulations. So while you're worrying about the paperwork, leave the moving part to us. We're Woody & Sons Moving Company, a Florida licensed and insured mover, and we offer same-day written estimates. Plus, no sneaky mileage, stairs, or additional stop fees. All we ask is that you check out our great ratings on Google and Angie's List, then go to woodyandsons.com to learn more. Whether you need a full service pack and move, or some extra hands, at Woody & Sons Moving Company, we move you.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local, family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. We've served Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Call us at 813-712-8888 or visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. Thank you so much for sticking around for the second part of our show today. In studio today, we have the mold guy, aka Dave Ball, with Interpro Restoration, and we were talking a little bit about mold and some of his credentials, which are amazing. If you missed any part of today's show, definitely check it out in its entirety. All of our shows are available via a podcast, and you can catch them also where we post the links below your show card across the web on Facebook and Twitter at Tampa Home Talk. So we were just explaining before the break, we were talking about the different tests for mold. And so Dave was mentioning during the break that he actually has something special for all of our listeners. He would be happy to give you the basic mold evaluation test kit for free. So it's something he's going to give us for our listeners. If you want to call or text in, our off-air number is 813-377-2775. 813-377-2775. You can call us or text us. And we are live today. So if you want to call in, we can also connect you over with Chris. He can take down your information and we'll get that out to you. 727-441-3000. Again, if you want to talk to the mold guy, ask him some questions, or you're driving home and you want to know a little bit more about some of the stuff we're talking about, 727-441-3000. So, Mr. Dave, pick up where we left off.
Okay. So basically what we were talking about was different types of tests and the costs associated with tests to find out if you have mold in your house. And basically what I was saying is that you're a homeowner, you want to do it yourself. You want to find out if you have mold and you don't want to spend $600 or $1,500 or something like that. What you can do is go on to the show's website and backlink, click on the link to our website, and on the very first page under home on the right-hand side, there's a little box, a contact us box. You can contact us, fill out your information, and say, I'd like a free swab kit or a test swab kit or something like that.
So again, just go to Tampa Home Talk. We will post that link for you so that you can get in touch with Dave and get your swab kit.
Right, yeah. And basically what the swab is, it's a yes-no. It's checking to see if what you think is mold, whatever you see, the stain or the color or whatever, if that's mold, it's real simple to use. You take it out, you swab it, you put it back in, you break the little bottom of it, you shake it up, and changes color. It's a yes/no indicator, and they're like $15.
Sounds like fun.
They're super cheap, yeah.
Yeah, but if you're listening to Tampa Home Talk today, you can get one at no cost.
That's right. So the other thing is it's like basically if what we can do is we can come in and do an air quality check in real time. Okay, how is that different from like a lab test, basically? So what we do is we use a laser particle counter, and not only can we do it for allergens or allergies, so if somebody has severe allergies in the home, we can actually test how much allergens are in your home and how it's affecting that person, but we can do the same thing with mold, and we can check how many spores are in the air in real time and compare it with the outside air and tell you, hey, listen, you have 10 times the acceptable limit of mold spores in your air. Something like that is a couple $100. That's the cheapest on the range of things that you're going to get.
And so does this have to be done by a licensed mold assessor? Or we're not there yet?
No, we're not to that one
Okay,
yet. Okay,
gotcha.
something like for that, you don't have to have a licensed mold assessor to do. The mold assessor comes into play when you're doing the lab tests and the protocol, and
Gotcha.
that's when it gets more expensive. So say, for instance, you had an insurance claim, and your insurance adjuster said, we need to have someone come out and do an air test and tell us if you have mold or not. Then at that case, if you called us, what we do is we call our licensed mold assessment company that we partner with, and they'll come out, and it's a much more intricate and detailed process. They set up a tripod with a petri dish, they hook it up to an aerosol, and basically extracts air and then collects on the petri dish the spores. That's mailed off to a lab. It's gram stained, it's put under a microscope, it's looked at, they tell you genus, species, spore count, and then they'll write a full report for you. It's about 10 pages long of how to remediate it and the remediation protocol associated to fix that problem. In that event, those are a lot more expensive. Those are usually required by insurance companies, and that you need to have a license as a mold assessor for.
It's crazy when you think about how many different types. Like, I mean, I can see why it would be 10 different pages long.
Yeah. And what they do is they go in, they kind of just basically list the common types and how it affects people and stuff like that. And
So not to get
general
technical,
ranges.
but what are some of the common types? Like,
Okay.
what are the 5 most common types?
Okay, so if you were to, All right, an easy way to answer that question. The one that everybody knows is Stachybotrys.
Okay.
That's the black mold. That's
Gotcha.
what you see on like the news or Channel 10 or something like that.
I got the black
Yeah, is
mold.
it going to get you? Yeah. That's Stachybotrys.
You know, I walked into this house once, this condo, and it literally had mold all over the walls, like all over. It was visible. You could see it everywhere. It's crazy. I'm like, I'm not going in here.
No. They have, there's Stachybotrys, there's Cladosporium, there's Aspergillus, there's Penicillium. Almost every time we end up getting a lab test done, what you find in your house is Cladosporium, Aspergillus, Penicillium, and maybe one or two other things. You don't really have Stachybotrys typically in your home, but it can be present. There's a lot of different types. One is not more harmful than the other. All of them affect.
They're just
a
different.
person.
It's like having a different cold, right? Or a different
Right.
virus.
Yeah.
It's just different.
They're just different. But the thing is, Stachybotrys, since it's black in color, it gets that, the celebrity, from the news and everything else. Because if you went on to a TV show and said, you have white mold, people don't really respond to white mold in the way that black mold, that sounds just so
the
much
devil.
worse. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, the five, those are the common types.
So the stuff, I mean, we see all the times, like around the caulking in homes, we'll see mold. What type of mold is that usually? Do you know? Or it just depends again?
It really just depends, because just because it's black, it doesn't mean it's Stachybotrys. Mold comes in a lot of colors: white, green, red, yellow, black.
Oh, darn, we're getting to our next segment.
The other thing is they grow together. You know what I mean? So like if you did a surface swab or a tape lift or something like that, you can get 4 or 5 different kinds of mold, and it's all the same color. So in your house, there's a difference
So
between...
the colors of mold, since you already touched on that,
Oh, yeah. Well,
there's at least 5 different colors,
yeah,
right?
there's at least 5 different colors.
You said white. Is that really a color?
That white you usually see on the truss system inside an attic.
Okay.
That's where usually
Oh, yeah, I
raised
have
at.
seen that, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. So white, yellow, green, black, red, pink.
No pink.
No
I
pink?
haven't seen a pink one
No
yet.
pink?
No pink. No camouflage.
I'm making it up as I go along. That's probably the expert in studio today.
Yeah, so, But yeah, a lot of things that I hear people confuse a lot is mold and mildew. And they're not the same. You do have what's called slime molds, and that's basically the most easiest way to say to someone it's mildew. That's what you find.
So that's the stuff in the shower?
That's what you find in your shower.
Okay.
That's what you find around your kitchen sink. That little slimy stuff, like when you wipe with a paper towel and it's like that, the little slime. That's what that is. Those are your slime molds. The slime molds or the wet molds are not really as
Dangerous?
I want to
That's
say
the word?
dangerous, but they're not going to affect you in the same way because they're not dispersible. Okay.
In the air?
Right.
Gotcha.
Because they're wet and they're contained.
So they're just eating the water, basically.
Yeah,
That's their food
they're
source.
eating the bacteria, and that's in the water, the food source, or crumbs or anything like that. Your dead skin cells and hair and stuff like that. It's gross.
They love that stuff. Gosh, it's so scientific. So, what about the process to remove mold? Because I know you and I had a chance to talk before the show, and it's a pretty extensive process, and it's also very regulated. And before you jump into that, you were talking about changes that were recent in the law. Was it like a few years back?
Okay, yeah. So with that, there's a couple of things that homeowners should be aware of. A couple of years ago, when you got mold certified, it was done to the IICRC.
Okay, and what is that? Break it down.
That's right. I forgot. It's the Institute. It's
ISCRC, is that what you said?
yeah, IICRC.
Oh, IICRC. And what is that?
It's the Institute of Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration.
Company?
Cleaning.
Okay.
Yeah, it's their logo and their name is terrible, and they went to changing it to the Clean Trust or the Clean Source, and now it's going back to the IICRC because nobody can ever pronounce that right.
So they're the entity that regulates that? Or?
They're the nonprofit organization that brought all the research together and all the guys that did that kind of work at the time and basically sat down and said, this is how you do water restoration. Here's the
So
standard.
the overseer, the standard in the industry, got
Right.
it. Those are always good to have.
And they came with that, and they reached out to like the EPA, because the EPA, if you go onto the EPA website, it has everything about mold that the EPA discloses.
It's Environmental Protection Agency, just in case you're curious.
Oh yeah, the Environmental Protection Agency. So basically, and then you have like the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, or OSHA, which is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So each one of these regulates mold in a different way.
And
How do you know who gets involved when? Like at what time?
They don't. That's what the IICRC was for. They brought all those together in the New York Standards and Guidelines and sat down and wrote a book and said, this is the way it's done. And then from there, you get the different rules and regulations. So the EPA, for the Environmental Protection Agency, they basically say if you have less than 10 square feet of mold that you can visibly see, this is the type of containment you need, this is the type of equipment you need, and whether or not you need negative air pressure. Then if you have between 10 and 100, it's this. If you have more than 100, it's that. And that's kind of how we come in and set up, and we say, like we were talking about earlier with the recirculate method, how I can come in, I can put an air scrubber in a contained area and let the air recirculate over and over and over. And it cleans based on how many square foot of mold growth that we actually have, versus if you had a lot, say more than 100 square feet of growth, then I'd actually take that machine and turn it into a negative air machine, hook it up to a window and exhaust that air out. And that's when we bring fresh air in through a filtered source, and it would actually suck in the containment and suck in the plastic and make it airtight, more or less.
So it neutralizes the air. That's toxic, for lack of better words.
Yeah, that's what I mean, really. And that's when it comes down to your do-it-yourselfer. You got the handyman at home, the do-it-yourselfer, whoever, and they want to do work. That's why we say you really shouldn't handle mold.
Well, we're going to get into that in just a minute when we come back right after the break. We're going to talk about why you don't want to grab that spray bottle of bleach and dive into yourself. We're going to talk about what happens when you actually do that. And then we're going to talk a bit more about the process to remove the mold and the 5 most common places where you'll find it in a house. Back in a minute.
It's Paula, your insurance lady. You've got your insurance good news of the day. Did you know that there are private companies in Florida that are offering flood insurance? That's great news. In many cases, a private carrier can offer you better rates than your old FEMA policy. So that's good news of the day. We've got great carriers offering flood insurance in our state. So check with me or check with your agent today. I'm Paula, your insurance lady.
Aaron Davis here, owner of Hillsborough Title, serving all of Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services, where we offer full inspections and insurance inspections. Give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
You've heard this before. Interest rates are at all-time record lows. But if your interest rate is 4% or above, you owe it to yourself to call Silverton Mortgage Specialist. Silverton is a direct lender, and the best part about this is that the entire loan process is handled in-house. From application to close, we do it all in the same building, which means that our loans close fast and our clients know what's going on every step of the way. Our contact info is located on TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show. What makes Silverton different? Products. We offer VA, FHA, USDA, and conventional loans pricing. Best rates with the lowest closing cost. Process everything in-house. It's handled right here and not outsourced to anyone that no one can reach. This way we can avoid surprises. Our people are simply the best, and we know you'll agree. What will closing Silverton Mortgage Specialist mean to you? A smooth process, real home loan value, and personal attention from real professionals. Silverton Mortgage Specialists are here to serve you. Visit TampaHometalk.com under Radio Show for all of our contact details. NMLS 109600 is an equal housing lender and Florida and Georgia residential mortgage licensee.
Don't turn it off now. You need this stuff. Tampa Bay's Tan Talk Radio Network.
That's right. We are diving into the next part of mold this afternoon. In studio today with the mold guy, Dave Ball with Interpro Restoration. Mold, one of the specialties that you have among others. You guys also do a lot of disaster restoration type stuff, but since today's mold, we're going to finish our conversation on that. So let's talk about the process to remove the mold. I know before the break you were speaking of the machines that you bring in to basically neutralize the air. Is that a good word to say?
Yeah, we don't
decontaminate.
Decontaminate would be an accurate
Okay.
word. Yeah, so basically, and this is the thing, and this is what I try to tell my customers, is we don't actually kill mold. We don't. Nobody kills mold.
That's a great point. That's right. I forgot you mentioned that.
Yeah, you don't actually kill it, you remove it. It's same thing with like asbestos or lead-based paint. It's not so bad if you don't mess with it. It's when you start messing with it and agitating it, you release those spores, you release the mycotoxins into the air, and those are the things that are harmful to you that you breathe in. So, for instance, and the other part of it is the mold breaks down the building material. So that's never good either. I mean, I've seen it eat through plywood sheeting, and you can see outside. I mean, it'll eat through anything. But the thing is it's with the mold, you don't want to handle it if you don't know what you're doing, because you can actually cross-contaminate your environment. So if you have mold in a bedroom and you don't have mold in your living room and you don't know what you're doing and you start tearing it out and it gets all over your clothes, it gets all over your skin and everything, and then you go into the kitchen, you pick up a glass, and you can start moving it around in the house. And that's how you can start spreading it.
Because, again, a lot of the stuff you're talking about is stuff you can't see.
Right. That's right. You can't see it. And so that's what the equipment's for. We don't kill it, we remove it. So the process is we contain the area that we're working in. Then we place equipment in the area before we start working, and that equipment cleans the air. And so then we remove the building material that's affected by it, put it in trash bags, and throw it away. So it's actually removed.
So again, you can't kill it. You got to get rid of it.
You got to get rid of it. And then, so like if you had it's not really popular here, but in South Florida it's really popular, aluminum framing houses. You'll see it here in commercial construction, but you really don't see it in residential construction at all. It doesn't grow on that. That usually just rusts. But if it's for here, real popular, it's wood framed houses. So when you've got wood framing, the mold will grow on that. Now we can't rub a chemical on it and clean that. Basically what we do is we actually sand down that wood and disperse the mold into the air on purpose. And that's what the machine's there for. The machine's there to capture those spores and capture those mycotoxins into the filter and filter that stuff out. And that's why we wear respirators.
So that's how you get rid of it. It's not necessarily, you don't have to go, knocking chunks of drywall or wood out. It's not necessarily all that. It could be something as simple as sanding it and getting it through the machine.
Well, yeah, the thing is you can't get to the wood framing without removing the drywall, and the mold usually grows on the drywall first before it grows on the wood framing, because there's less competing factors. And also, it usually grows on the back of the drywall before it grows on the front of the drywall, the side that you see.
Interesting point. Yes. Yeah. So if we're just wandering around looking at properties and we physically see mold on the drywall on the inside, you're saying likely or always it's already covered on the back.
Yeah, typically if you have a surface that's been painted, especially some that's been painted 4 or 5 times, 3 or 4 times even, the mold that you see is usually less than what's on the inside of the wall cavity and on the back side of the drywall, because on the back side it's just paper. And there's really nothing there for a competing factor, so it can thrive and flourish.
The mold likes that stuff better, right? Yeah.
And it also likes that it's a dark, damp, wet space, and there's less airflow in there, so it's easier for the spores to attach itself to that surface.
Because the sun plays a part, correct?
Right. Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, so now in the HVAC industry, they've been selling these ultraviolet lights that are supposed to help sanitize your air and sanitize your home and help reduce the amount of mold that's in the air. And I've had customers call me, they have mold in their AC system, and they're wondering if they put that black light in, will it get rid of the mold? Will it solve that problem for them? And it doesn't. And the best way that I can explain it is the way it was explained to me by an HVAC company here that I work with, is basically it's a good preventative. If you don't have a problem and you have a clean system, it's a great tool to have in your system to help keep your air clean. If you have a bad problem, it's not going to be the answer to your problem. Now, if you were to clean or fix the system and then put that ultraviolet light in, that's good. And the light came about because there's certain types and certain species of mold that are photosensitive. So, and then you'll see it in vacuum cleaners too. If you ever watch like the Shopping Network, the vacuum cleaners, and they have that, black light, ultraviolet light, it helps sanitize your carpet and stuff like that. Yeah,
people sell anything.
Yeah, it's basic. I don't want to say that it's a gimmick because I can't say that.
People will sell anything, really.
But it's like one of those things where one person found that maybe one species of mold was photosensitive, and then it's mold's photosensitive. No, it's not all photosensitive. Some of them are, you know.
So one of the frequently asked questions that you get is the black mold, which again is not always the worst type.
No, mold comes in a variety of colors like we touched on earlier: white, green, red, yellow, black. The color does not distinct that mold's bad for you and the other one's not. All of them can affect you. All of them in enough concentration can be bad for you, and every person is different.
Right.
And
if you have like you said, if you have an allergy to mold or an allergy to cats, it's no different.
Right. And the thing is it breaks down into your HLA gene, and inside your body you carry a gene, and that gene processes out foreign bodies and mycotoxins and mold spores and stuff like that, and cat dander and pollen and those kind of things. So people with weaker immune systems, like people with allergies, people over 65, people under 3, those people are all more susceptible to mold, according to the IICRC. So what ends up happening is you might be very sensitive to Stachybotrys, and I might be very sensitive to Penicillium. But the thing is, in the house, usually both are present. You know, it's not I've got mold and it's one kind of mold. Now, every time we've done a mold remediation, had an air sample taken, it's like 6, 7, sometimes 11 different types of mold, 15 different types of mold.
So I take it the Penicillium is what they make penicillin from.
Right.
Which I'm highly allergic to. So,
yeah, so
you know.
That's a great point. You're allergic to penicillin, you know?
It's probably not a good mold to be in my house, right?
That's right, yeah. I mean, yeah.
So where's some of the 5 places, like they're the common places? I mean, obviously they like wet, but let's talk about the 5 most common places people would see mold in their home.
Okay, yeah. So if I was doing a home inspection or looking over a home and I wanted to purchase a home or rent a home or anything like that, these are the places that I would look for mold. Number 1, it's going to be under your windows. You get window leaks. Window leaks are really, really popular, especially here in Florida. And what happens is people don't caulk the outside of their windows every year like they're supposed to. So
the other thing too, sometimes, and we'll notice this a lot, and the home inspectors always they call it out if they see it. But if you have shrubbery or anything too close to the house that can keep water basically on the house versus away from the house, that can play a part in it too.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Your house is not a airtight, waterproof building envelope system. And people think it is, and they think concrete is not porous and concrete doesn't wick water, and that's not true. I have a lot of customers, they'll get what's called slab leaks, where there's a crack in the slab, and hydrostatic pressure pushes the water up into the house when it rains. I've seen that a bunch of times.
What does that cause from? Because we've seen that in homes where the floor is just wet for no apparent reason.
Yeah, basically what happens is it's hydrostatic pressure. So the concrete slab, from the weight of the slab, is pushing down on the ground. And because it's pushing down on the ground with such a weight and such a force, the water is pushed back up into the concrete out of the material that's underneath it. So say you have dirt underneath your house, you have a concrete slab on it, you have, that law of motion. For every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So as you're pushing down with the slab in the house, that same amount of force is pushing water back up into your house.
Makes sense.
So then you get the wicking effect through concrete, because concrete is not porous. It's a porous material, so it will wick up moisture. That's why if you ever lay laminate flooring in your house, you probably get a vapor barrier, so you don't get those smells and water wicking up into your laminate flooring.
Plus that you can hear how they sound when you walk on it when it doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So the windows is one. What's one of the other areas?
Windows is one. The other one's your anywhere that's a wet area. So by your front door, by your back door.
We see those a lot right on the side of the garage door where there's no gutters and the water splatters down the little concrete pad and hits the bottom part of the wood.
Yep, that one's a lot. The other one, it would be like your kitchens and your bathrooms, your sinks, your vanities, anything like that. That's another big one is, you do dishes all the time and you're in the sink and you're cleaning. Water goes everywhere. It never stays in the sink. I mean, when I do dishes, water is everywhere. Yeah.
We do.
So it's like you have that backsplash right there where the sink is, and there's always like water that pulls up there and stuff like that. Well, it doesn't, that caulking breaks down over time and you get that crack. Well, think about this. You wash your dishes 3 or 4 times a day, every single day. By the time the year's passed, it's almost 1,000 times. So 1,000 times in a year with so much water will slowly drip down back behind your vanity because there's a crack in that caulking, and mold will start to grow. And that's probably definitely one of the most common places that you can find mold.
Makes sense.
In somebody's house.
We have one of the seamless kitchen sinks, so we probably don't have that issue.
Yeah.
At least not the kitchen.
Yeah. So then you have that one. Then bathrooms, same thing. The same thing happens in the bathroom, around the bathtubs especially. And a lot of people, I've seen that. You get out of your shower soaking wet, and they put Durarock in the bathroom and drywall right outside the shower, and you get out, and just, if you always look down in the corners, you see that there's a little bit of mold growing in the corner there because people come out and they're wet, and that building material is not resistant to mold like Durarock is.
Excellent point. I'm so glad I dry off in the shower.
Yeah, that's another one. Your HVAC system, your air conditioning system. This is probably the most destructive system in your house by far. And then the reason
and this is something, again, you're not going to be able to see because you're talking about the AC ducts, right?
Well, it's not just the ducts. What happens is you have a drain pan. So, right, basically the way an AC system works is a cooling coil is cooled or heated, and a fan blows air across that to move cold air or hot air throughout the house through your duct system. So when it blows cold air, it condensates. When it condensates, it drips, and it goes into a drip pan. That drip pan has to be sloped towards the drain line. Well, if the pan's not leveled properly or sloped properly and the water pools, that pan will rust, and then the water will leak, and then you'll get it on your ceiling, and then in the insulation and the truss system, and all that will break down, and eventually you get this big water stain in your garage or a big water stain in your house. That's number one. The other thing is if the drain line is not cleaned regularly, like once a year, then what happens is that mildew and that slime mold we were talking about that's found in HC systems builds up in there, and it clogs that drain line, and that drain line backs up and the pan overflows, and you get the same result. And since it's so close in proximity to the AC system, once mold starts growing around that AC system, mold can attach to the plenums, which is like the white mastic outside the AC, the metal AC box, if you will. And you'll see it if you ever go in any
It attaches
house.
a lot of times to the tape, doesn't it?
Yeah,
That's
attached to
holding
the
it-
tape,
yeah.
right. So like for me personally this year, I got a lot of calls with this actual problem. They're putting the AC systems in the garage. That is a terrible building idea. I don't know who came up with that idea. That's a terrible building idea. I know a couple builders personally that build things that way, and I'm like, you should not do that.
A lot of them will do them in the garage and the attic.
Yeah, the attic's not so bad, and the garage is really bad, and I'll tell you why. Because the garage, you open the door, new spores come in. You close the door. You open the door, new spores come in. You close the door. So the spore concentration is higher or lower, and it changes rapidly, but it's always exposed to new spores. In the attic, once your attic is built and sealed, it's pretty much a closed system. There's not anything new that comes into that system. So it's easier for your attic to stay at a really, really low spore count. And if your spore count is really low, then usually mold won't grow because there's not enough spores for the given surface area for it to reproduce and grow. You see that problem.
I'm glad you elaborate on that because, you would think, oh, the attic's hotter. There's mold. It's going to be more of it. So it's an interesting point that you bring up. And it goes back to, when it's your specialty, you know it inside and out.
Yeah, it's and the thing is the AC systems sweat. And they don't just sweat where the drain pan is, they sweat on those plenums. And that's where the problem is because if the plenum is sweating in the garage and you open the door and new spores come in, it can attach itself. And we actually did a mold job not too long ago. That was the exact problem, is it was sticking to the plenum. And then what happens is it blows it throughout the house. And one of the customers I had, she had it was like turning black. It was turning dark on the drywall and the ceiling around the AC vent. And she's like, I need somebody to come out and repaint my ceiling. And I was like, why? She's like, I get it painted every year because my ceiling keeps turning black. And I was like, I think you have a problem, but I don't think paint's the answer. So we came out and looked at it, and that's exactly what it was. Her AC system was outside in the garage. And because it was out in the garage, it had mold on it, and the mold had ate through that tape and that masking in the paper and the AC system, and they was just pushing it throughout the house, just pushing it.
So when it looks as crazy as it does on the outside of the unit, I imagine the inside of the unit is way worse.
Well,
whereas again, it's the stuff you can't see.
No, it's what happens is the inside the AC duct system is very interesting because the inside is one of two things. It's either, the fiberglass where it's on the inside, it's got the wire, and then it has that plastic wrap inside, so it's very smooth and it's plastic. Well, the mold really doesn't grow on that plastic liner. But when it gets to the mixing box where the tubes are connected to go to other tubes,
it's where how they spread the AC throughout your house.
Yeah, that's where you'll see the mold, and you'll see it around that duct board.
So we have in studio today Dave Ball with Interpro Restoration Remodeling. This is your host, Katrina Madewell, Tampa Home Talk on the Real Estate Radio Network. When we come back in just a minute, we're going to continue on with our guest, and his amazing credentials were so great. If you missed the beginning part of the show, check it out at tampahometalk.com. The whole show is also on a podcast. We're going to talk about his story and why he does what he does and how mold actually affected his family. So can't think of anybody I'd rather have talk about this subject than Dave. We'll be back in a minute.